Welcome to r/entitled people, where we share stories from your lives about people who think the rules don't apply to them, and they should get what they want. Thank you friends for subscribing to the channel, and for so many likes. And today we have two great stories, so subscribe, hit the like button, and let's begin. The first story: an entitled mother destroyed our property, ruined the party, and was charged in court. The second story: what could be better than firing your hated boss? Maybe do it twice. The first story is Halloween tradition ruined by EP and EK. Me and my wife don't have any children. We were not able to have any due to health reasons, but we used to live in a suburb which had many families with small children. What we would do each year is go all out on Halloween for the local children. It is a way we give back to our community and have fun while doing it. We probably have enough Halloween decorations and animatronics to supply a couple haunted houses with stuff left over. So we try to do something different every year for the kids and dress up to hand out candy. It is our favorite holiday. Each year we would divide the decorations. In the backyard we had strobes, scary music, fog machines, several animatronics, and it was pretty cool but intimidating to some of the smaller children. Some kids would cry out of fear if their parents suggested going through the backyard to get candy. In the front yard we had some more tame decorations, and my wife was dressed up handing out candy. In the backyard, I had a huge candy dish set up, but I was hidden out of sight controlling some of the effects and animatronics. This year, we had 20 pounds of candy, 4 5-pound bags, split between the front yard and the backyard. After the first year of setting up the elaborate displays, our house became the must-see attraction on Halloween, and we learned very quickly that it's always better to have too much candy than too little. We would do something extra special for the kids that were first to show up. One year, it was king-sized candy bars for the first 10 kids. Another year we gave candy and $1 coins. This year we were feeling generous, so we decided $5 for the first 10 kids, which was split between the front yard and back. My wife had 5 $5 bills she handed out, and I had 5. I chose to lay out 5 regular-sized candy bars with a $5 bill taped to each one, and set them in front of the huge bowl of candy, which had both 5-pound bags emptied into it. Now I should point out that we never had any issues in previous years. I always used the honor system in the backyard, allowing the kids to get their own candy, and my wife would hand it out. The kids had a great time and were always respectful. We actually garnered a lot of thanks from neighbors for going all out for the kids. The kids who enjoyed it and would go out of their way to do nice things in return for us, such as shoveling our driveway, cutting our grass, etc. Okay, back to the story. This particular year it had gotten dark before the kids started trick-or-treating, so I took advantage of the darkness with some of the more stealthy animatronics. Ones that moved but were hard to see because they were not lighted, like snakes, spiders, and bats. From the sidewalk, kids that were not scared or wanted to be scared would walk down a small path around a few trees, where I had let the grass grow close to knee-high, which helped camouflage the strobe lights and fog machines. I would have a few small outdoor speakers playing some kind of creepy or scary sounds or music, as the kids would walk down the path to a clearing in front of our shed, where we had this huge creepy-looking wicker chair, with a motion-triggered zombie that sat in it. You would have to pass in front of the zombie to get to the table, which had the candy and a sign stating that we use the honor system. Please take 1 piece of candy. Well, the first kid showed up, a boy about 8 or 9 years old, his 4 or 5-year-old sister with their mom. It was not uncommon for kids to be accompanied by their mom or dad if they dared to go into the backyard. Both kids took one look down the dark path and chose to go to the front yard for candy. This continued for about 10 minutes before a kid about 13 or 14 gathered up the courage to come through the backyard. Yes, I scared the crap out of him, but when he made it to the table, he just stood there. I wasn't sure if he was still shook up from the zombie jumping up because he just stood at the table for a moment afraid to take any candy. This happens a lot too, because they think something will grab them if they touch the candy. One year we used the candy bowl with the hidden hand that would do just that, but not this year. I set down the controls and stepped out from the shadows, which scared him again. I was wearing a long black cloak and black gloves and skeleton face makeup, to assure him that he could take one of the $5 candy bars. He grabbed it and ran quickly back up the path to what I guess was a younger brother, who'd received candy from the front door. Me and my wife had a system to communicate when someone would take one of the $5 candy bars, so we could make sure no one would go to the backyard and then try to go to the front yard. I would flip the floodlights on the corner of the house, which she could see. We had a sign along our wooden fence that pointed out that you could choose the scary path or the less frightening front door, so parents didn't have to take small kids into the backyard and leave with them crying from being scared. It was probably 5 minutes before 2 kids that looked about 10 or 12 years old came through the backyard together. They walked slowly, teasing each other along the way, jumping and screaming out of fear. Occasionally, when one of the bats or spiders or other animatronics activated by their proximity or motion, they eventually made it to the candy table, after screaming when the zombie lurched forward as they walked past it, but each took $5 bars. This left me with 2 more to give out, and then I would be on the normal fun-size Halloween candy: 5 pounds of Snickers, Twix, Milky Way, 3 Musketeers, and Hershey's. The next group I could see was 2 smaller kids, around 3 to 5 years old, with an obese kid who looked 14 or 15 accompanied by EM. The 2 little ones made their way to the front porch after EC motioned for them to go get candy. Then EM and EC decided to walk down the path into the backyard together. One of the first things I hear wasn't a startled scream, but the stuck-up B voice of EM. EM, what a horrible waste of money. This is ridiculous. It was shrill and snide sounding. What she said angered me a bit, but I didn't want to ruin it for her kid, so I rushed to reset the zombie and take cover. Now EM made sure she was speaking loudly enough so that anyone in the backyard could hear her. EM, this isn't something for kids. This is sick. I assumed it was a front to make herself not sound scared. I could see she had a death grip on EC's shoulder as they walked down the path. They both screamed as one of the bats had swooped down at them. They ran on a wire when triggered, and one could come at you from the left and one from the right. EC sounded like he was getting shook up pretty good because he was whining, not saying anything, just this unsteady whine, which was odd for an older kid. EM decided to chime in again quite angrily. These people are sick. We do not need this in our neighborhood. Just plain sick. It was quiet again until EC screamed again, when he had triggered one of the snakes in the grass. I could hear him trying to fight back tears at this point, like a bumbling, whimpering cry, but they pressed on. EM, I will take care of this. Just you watch. Now, I was assuming this was a parent that was trying to reassure their frightened kid, although he was a teenager, so I did think much about her comment at that moment. I was too busy thinking in my head where I would scare them. In retrospect, I wish I had paid attention better and realized it was an EM up to no good. I stood behind the shed waiting silently for the zombie to trigger. When it was triggered, it lurched forward while making an angry moan. It should have happened within a minute of the snake. After a minute and a half, I peeked around the shed to see EM and EC waddling. Their size prevented them from being able to run towards the entrance. It only took me a second to notice they had stolen all the candy that was on the table, and the 2 $5 candy bars. I was peeved. I started running after them. I'm a tall guy and very fast on my feet. I got about 3 good strides in before I tripped over wires. WTF? I looked down and saw that EM had cut the wires on the animatronic bats. When I looked up again, I could see her gathering her 2 little ones and hurrying them to a car with EC. I was seething at this point. Her car was parked in front of my next-door neighbor's house. I was at full speed as the car started, and she stomped on the gas as I punched her passenger window, where her fat EC was holding the full candy bowl up with a huge grin on his tear-streaked face. The window didn't break. It only made EM recklessly speed out of the parking lot, with no regard for the kids that were trick-or-treating all over the neighborhood. Several parents and neighbors came up and asked me what was going on. I explained what they had stolen. Thankfully, one of the parents had got the license plate number before she got off our street. I was ticked but realized that we had other kids that wanted to visit. I closed the gate and explained to my wife what had happened. We decided to split the front door candy so we could at least pass candy out in the backyard, allowing other kids to enjoy our haunt. When I went back there to fix what EM had broken, I realized that she had cut power cords as well. Effing B. I took the candy back to my wife at the front door, knowing it would take me a while to fix the damage. I quickly began making repairs and adjustments. About 5 minutes later, the police had shown up, thanks to a neighbor that had called them. They took a description of the car and plates while I filed a report about the incident. By the time I had finished with the police, the 2-hour trick-or-treating had ended. My wife had about a half a bowl of candy left, and she said she might have seen about 100 kids. I had seen 3 and 2 thieves who ruined the rest of the night for the other children that wanted to attend. We had considered holding over for another night and allowing kids to come again, but unfortunately the weather had got cold and very rainy, which plays hell on our animatronics. It was a few days before the cops had located EM. She lived almost 30 miles away and brought her kids to my neighborhood because they had heard the rumors about our mini haunt. She and her son was charged with destruction of property, vandalism, and criminal mischief. Apparently several cops' kids were supposed to attend, but never got the chance after EM and EC, which angered several officers. EC was charged as a minor. The police also recommended I also file a lawsuit in civil court for the damages, which I gladly did. The fallout. In court, EM and EC tried to claim that I was bringing Satanism into the community, a community she didn't live in, and that she felt that she had to do something. They were as snide as ever in court. EM was found guilty on destruction of property and vandalism, but not criminal mischief. She got 6 months in county jail. EC was removed from her home and spent the next 2 years in juvenile detention. Apparently, this was not the first time he was in trouble. The court never elaborated on his previous crimes due to him being a minor. As for the civil lawsuit, I won, and she was ordered to pay me $4,000 in damages, plus another $6,000 in lawyer fees. The neighbor across the street is an attorney and represented me. We continued our haunt for 2 more years, until we moved out to the rural area we live in now. We don't get trick-or-treating kids, because the nearest house to ours is about a 1/4 mile away. I hope you enjoyed this story. I'm sorry if there are any punctuation or grammar errors. I have more stories to tell, so stay tuned. Wow, your house sounds amazing, and it sounds like you and your wife had a lot of fun doing it for the kids. I wish I could have seen it. It sounds like it was awesome. Great job entertaining the kids. We need more people like you, and less people like this entitled God knows what creature in this world. Anyway, I'm glad EM and EC didn't go unpunished. After all, I love reading that someone brought charges against a-holes who ruin the lives of others, especially children. It's the only way to get them to stop and think about what they're doing. It's one thing when they go after individuals, but they go after a holiday, they go after children. It's a line beyond which there's no quarter. What a pathetic piece of SH. They ruined something for someone and used religion, while their own religion says not to do the crap they do. That's crazy. I hope her name is tarnished and people remember her name and actions. Thank you for caring enough to see it through. The second story is, I got my previous boss fired as I left my company, and thinking of getting her fired again from her new job. I used to work for a company called WeWork. For those of you that have heard the horrific stories about this company, the abuse, harassment, and outright illegal activity that occurred there, and still does, trust me, that's just the tip of the iceberg. So anyway, my previous boss, ironically the HR head, was an absolutely horrific person, and embodied everything bad about the company, and she thoroughly enjoyed the abuse she dished out every day. When I resigned, several people asked me to report her to the head office, so I did. I sent a very long, detailed email with documents and voice recordings I and the others had made over the past few months. After an investigation and many interviews with us, with threats to take the information public, surprisingly, she was fired. It was a great day. Now I see on LI that she has a new job, and seriously considering sending the same information to her new employer. What to do? You and your former coworkers were right to share the information with your supervisor, and she suffered appropriate consequences for her actions. Given the way the hiring process works, she probably had to explain why she was let go from her previous job, and they may well have called WeWork for details. If you're put in the position of working for or with her again, be sure to bring her pathetic record to the appropriate manager-owner, but in the meantime, take the win and move on. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.